Mrs. Doneno?
Here.
Ms. Jones? Mr. Holton?
Here.
Mrs. Burdick? Ms. Redding?
Here.
And Chairman Yim.
Here. Okay, next order of business is approval of minutes for November 12th. Has everybody had a chance? As you unpack, right?
No, I read them. Yeah.
Both of you.
I'm good.
I read them. I just don't think I can vote on this one, right?
You get to vote.
Oh, I did? Then, yeah, did I approve of them?
I
1, 2,
second.
3, 4, 5, yeah. Okay, discussion, anybody have anything to say? And I guess any of the audience members, we have to do it even on approval of minutes. All right, seeing as how there's no further discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Election of officers. Start with chairman, and this is for next year. Nominations.
I nominate Dick as chairman.
I'll second that.
Oh, you like the way I beat you up, huh? Any other nominations? Okay, seeing as how there are none, then it's, I guess, unanimous. Vice chairman, nominations.
I nominate Lynn.
Okay,
I second.
okay. Any other nominations? This is moving quick. Unanimous. Congratulations. Citizen input. Dog park has been pulled, is my understanding. And
Pulled for good?
well, my understanding is it's now back to council's taking it on directly,
That's right.
and it's going to be a very involved process because it's scheduled on January. When's your first meeting? In January 13th, something like that. 7th.
Yeah.
Okay, where they're going to go into discussion on how they want to address it, and depending on what channel they follow. I.e., whether or not it moves toward a charter item.
We're already working on that.
Yeah, but if it goes toward a charter item, there really cannot be any movement by this commission until after the determination of what the land really is. So if it goes to charter, that means it goes to next November before it can even get back to us.
But, Lynn, the dog people didn't take it directly to City Council. It was brought up by Mr. Wenger and Pilar Turner and Ken Day. It was not the dog people came in to be able to respond if there were any questions, but they didn't do it.
Jim, can you tell us what happened, please?
Yes. The City Council is now considering, and this was a request of Ken Degg, who made a presentation to the City Council, the various parks, and some of them are not parks, that the city owns, and to include those in the protection of the charter. Therefore, they could not be sold or leased to anything other than recreational uses if you place them in the listing of the charter. So the City Council has taken that under advisement. Amelia Graves, Councilwoman Amelia Graves, has been charged with looking at all the properties. The property that is presently known as the dog exercise area is really not a designated park. And so let's say that they wanted to put that into the charter as a city park, and more than likely that's how it would go in, that we need to, get a name for that park. And what we are discussing internally administratively was that we would just make that an extension of the Bob Summers Park, because Bob Summers Park is in the charter. And it would still have to go to referendum because that name change would only be by resolution. And if that was going to be one of the parks placed on the referendum to be included in the charter, then it would be a name would be given to it. Dog exercise area is a recreational activity, so therefore would qualify if we wanted to designate it for, similar to what we do at Riverside Park for the airplane folks. If you wanted, we allow them to do that. And the City Council would have a variety of ways in which to use the area as an exercise park if they choose to do so. Now, when it's in the charter, it does not prohibit the leasing of land, i.e. the museum and the theater are examples of that.
You're saying it could not be leased?
No, I'm saying it does not prohibit leasing. And I'm using the theater and the museum as examples of that. It has to be recreational use.
Well, I guess I'd just like to go on the record at this point to say that all of the restrictions that we put on the airplane, the model airplane people, I hope would be put upon any group that would want to use recreate city land, including insurance and permits and times and everything else that we have done, so there is an equality across the board for people using any city parks.
If in fact the property is leased out for dog park or otherwise, insurance is required. We have a universal leasing agreement that would apply. Pricing is not universal, but the fact of the matter is the regulations and holding the city harmless and as a co-insured is a requirement for that to take place.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to also ask you if this indeed is going to be an extension of the park. Why is this issue not coming up before our commission?
Because I think the City Council is now taking it under consideration with the presentation of the public. Do we, want to consider this as part of going under the charter? If we do, then it needs to be designated as the name of a park. So nothing has yet to be decided on that other than the consideration. We also have another piece of land just on the other side of Highway 60, or the bridge, that is the McWilliams Park. The McWilliams boat ramp is not really a park. It's not a part of the McWilliams properties. There's a triangle. If you really look at it, it's a relatively small area that is actually McWilliams Park that is in the charter. If we were going to include that property in the charter, again, we would recommend that we extend the name McWilliams across that entire area, so we wouldn't have, 35 different parks being listed in the charter. And it would be congruent to that site.
I guess I have a question for you, Dick. If indeed this becomes an extension of the parks, are we able to make a recommendation to City Council that this issue come back before us?
You always have the right to make a recommendation, Mr. Chairman, not to jump in front of you there, but absolutely you have the right to make recommendations. And as you see this process go forward, if you want to make a request to the City Council, if they choose to place that into the charter and on referendum, the Recreation Commission could obviously ask to be included in that process.
And can we make that request now?
Yes, ma'am, if you wanted to, however you as the committee wants to do it. And I recommend that you have a motion and a vote on it that you would send correspondence to the City Council making that request.
Okay, there are multiple steps in this, which I think you got to do. The first step is just their review and whether they want to make a recommendation that, and I think you can do it by resolution, is what you said, right? That's the next step. The council by resolution has to.
It's multiple steps. Number one, the council determined, we want to have a referendum to include additional parks in the charter. Then they got to decide which parks are we going to include in the charter.
Let me back up a step. In there to change the zoning on it first.
We're in the process of doing the zoning change, but you would not necessarily have to do a zoning change. We are going to do a zoning change. The council has requested that to occur.
Okay. And
so it's going to go to a park. But that does not preclude, in our zoning ordinances are pretty loose on having parks. You can designate a park in virtually any zone. For example, we have parks in residential zones all over the city. Many of those were in plats where they platted out the subdivision, and there wasn't a designated zone as park. It was part of the residential zone. So it's not uncommon, but we are pursuing the dog exercise area, and it's probably a little larger than that actually, because it's congruent to the McWilliams area. Probably get the whole thing designated as a park or recommend to the city council. So that is a secondary thing, but really the council's got to make a determination, A, that we're going to include more parks in the charter. And then if that's determined, then what parks do we want to include in the charter? And in some cases, what land do we want to include in the charter? Because if it's not a designated park, then we go and then we name and come back and have a name put onto that property to say this is going to be, so everybody would understand at a referendum.
All right, so chronologically speaking, you're in the process now of changing the zoning on it.
Correct.
And then council will make a recommendation whether they want to go to charter, right?
And add parks.
Designate
yes.
it as a park.
That is correct.
Okay, which means it probably will not come before next November's election when the charter, if the charter is amended.
But we will have some footwork to do between now and then. I'm not sure we're going to be ready the first meeting in January with the listing of all the city properties in the parks. That list is still being put together with the history of that property. For example, one council member asked, what is the value of the property where the dog exercise area is? We're doing that in-house. We're not going to pay somebody to get that value for us. And then we're also identifying through our GIS properties that we've had. For example, the piece of Pie Park was actually a park designated in a plat, but it was prior to the 1982 charter enactment, but it was designated in a plat, and when the city acquired it, we actually received a deed for a piece of Pie Park in 1992, which puts it after the 1982 designation in the charter, which theoretically it's in the charter, but there's still a little debate. It was a park previous to that. So those type of questions are going to have to be legally answered. And what we're doing is that we're doing a spreadsheet. I hate spreadsheets because I know what that's got me into in the past, but it's going to have up there the name of the park, how it was acquired, is it in the charter, is it not in the charter, and sort of a little history. And then we're going to put comments where there might be some confusion on the park. And so therefore the city council can determine, well, let's clear this up and we'll just put it on a referendum and that type of stuff. Again, that's going to be, Amelia is the one that's sort of charged with that effort right now to get it to council.
Okay, so as you go toward, I guess, getting it designated in the charter, if council desires to, move toward putting it in the charter, then where in line would we be for it to come back, the use of it? I guess it depends on whether council wants any more input.
Yeah, well, I think council does want to use the Recreation Commission. Obviously, I'm not a council member, but I just know from experience that has been the way that they have determined things in the past. But in order to make sure you're in that queue, I think it would be appropriate that you could write, and especially if we're going to do the name of parks and expand those names, I think you need to be involved in that process, if nothing else, as to how that's being done.
Okay, but the naming really doesn't come until after the charter approval?
No, the naming will happen before. That'll be one of the first steps that you do, because when you go to referendum, you're going to have to call this piece of ground something, and if it's not a park already, you're going to have to put a title on it. And my recommendation to the city council at this point would be is let's get all that lined up prior to a referendum, so it'll be very simple for the voters to say, here's McWilliams Park, and it'll be the newly designated McWilliams Park property.
Okay, so when council decides which parks they want to include in the referendum,
correct,
then it would be possible for it to come back to this commission to suggest naming if council so desires.
That is correct, and I don't think there's going to be any hesitation. I'll tell you what, I don't guess you really have to ask City Council. You could ask Rob and I, and we would bring back any work materials that we have and forward any comments that you all have to City Council. I mean, that'd be a simple way of doing it.
I'd rather make it a motion because, I don't know, communication doesn't seem to be real strong here lately, and we put considerable time into talking about the dog park last year or the year before. And I think that needs to be reviewed again when this comes up because we spent a lot of time doing this. And I don't want to, I would hate to have all those efforts lost.
I think that they took all of your previous comments to heart, and they've gone out and they've got a nonprofit status now. They've got $1 million insurance policy. They've got a lawyer that's working with them. The garden club is working with them. I think they listened to what you had to say.
Well, I don't really remember what our final recommendation was, but I think it was, do you remember, Dick, what our final recommendation was regarding that piece of land? Do you, Jim?
I think back when it was being talked about in the rowing, you all were opposed to that. I don't recall if there was a position on because it's always been a dog exercise area prior to the discussion of the rowing. So I
think the statement was made that we were very concerned about leasing parkland.
Yeah,
to anybody.
You've talked about leasing of the parkland, having concern over that. You've also talked about putting permanent structures in the parkland. You were concerned about that. And so you've been on, that's been fairly consistent. But Lynn, coming back to your original question, I think whatever motion you put forward, and if the Recreation Commission passes that, we'll make sure that it gets moved on to the City Council so they understand what it is and where your involvement that you would like to be in that. Because I think it's going to be multiple steps in this process.
Do you want to write a letter to?
I guess I make a motion.
Yeah, to write a letter or requesting that we be included.
I guess I'd like to make a motion that the Recreation Commission be involved in the naming and the usage of the piece of land.
Of that particular
piece of land.
Just that one particular?
Well,
at this point, yeah.
Right today, that's what we're talking about, is that particular piece of land. I mean, this committee is here to talk about any recreation and park property, so I'm not going to make a blanket statement that it's just this. Today, it's just this that I'm most concerned about. Especially if people are going out and getting insurance already and doing all sorts of things. And, I feel like we should be involved in that.
Well, I think they're trying to go through all the wickets that they heard. The last time I think you guys talked about this was April 10th, 2012. And I've got a copy of those minutes. And it was recommended basically that it be a dog exercise area for some, certain hours during the day. And that's what they went forward with. And it's, and these people have worked nonstop since that time to try to, fill in all the blanks. So,
well, we've had other groups working on too. The rowing club and the sailing club has gotten insurance and done all their homework as well, and we've made decisions.
Well, even the model airplane, as you suggested.
Yeah, so I don't see this as being any different than what has happened with those other groups, and some of those groups have had to go and find other areas.
Well, the rowing, as example, they're down at the wastewater treatment, but they actually are up underneath Highway 60 on DOT property. So, and they went out of their way to get permission from the state. So,
right. So I guess that is my motion today. Is to.
Can I suggest also? Can't we just add that in future, if we have to name something that we're covered, that we are invited, so it's already covered, then going back to it again?
Maybe the best way, just to be inclusive in any name.
But part of the problem with that is as you have change in council members,
You actually,
then you have to.
Or you're only making a request. You're not.
No, I appreciate that. But as far as, like, Amelia wasn't involved when we went through the dog park boathouse. Back, I guess, dog park, we did it like 2 or 3 years in a row.
you actually voted on what to name it once before. It says Mrs. Burdick made a motion to recommend the City Council consider naming the area shown and marked on the map as Bob Summers Park. See attached. And it was voted on 3-2. It passed 3-2 with Mr. Holton and Ms. Redding voting no. So it already got named
Well, no, it got recommended.
and approved.
Do you have a second? Are you all going to make a request that you just be involved in the discussions surrounding the animal or the dog exercise area in that naming of the park?
Well, parks, naming of all parks, right? Is that what you want?
Well, okay,
For consideration.
I'll make a motion that the Recreation Commission is involved in the naming and usage of all city parks and recreation areas.
Okay, second?
Second.
You can't vote.
I was gonna say now I can't. I told her I was
No,
like,
you vote.
I vote now. I'm confused.
Yeah, what? This is where I have to play referee. But according to the city, dictates on operating commissions that those sitting at the time the meeting starts. In other words, if an alternate moves up, they displace a regular member if they aren't here at the time the meeting starts for voting purposes. Okay?
Okay.
All right? Everybody,
So now I do
You can
vote.
second if you want.
I forgot what we were seconding now.
all right, read the motion back.
Ms. Redding, the gist of it is that the Recreation Commission be involved in naming and the usage of all parks and recreation areas in the city.
Okay. All right, I'll second it. Just to get
that's
things
fine,
moving.
Yeah, second. So
Any discussion? Anybody in the audience like to participate? Seeing as how there's none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you.
We will
Let's
move your
on.
request on through the city clerk's office to the mayor and council.
Yeah, we don't do. Does this require a memo or?
Rita, would you? She can prepare something for you. And
I'll prepare something to
Okay.
present to City Council.
Okay, thank you. No new business, old business. Approval of annual report, including minutes that were emailed to you. If you want to see it in color, I think Rita has a color copy. It's got some very nice pictures. New pictures.
Pass it down.
Yeah, I've seen it. Any comments?
Oh, I think you did a nice job. I think you guys did a nice job.
All right, can I have a motion for,
I make a motion that we accept the annual report.
I second.
discussion? Anybody in the public? Seeing as how there's none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Update on subcommittees. I guess everybody has a copy of the memorandum regarding beach parking. The update is I met with each council member, and it was initially scheduled to come before council December 3rd, yesterday. But by the request of the mayor and trying to fit everybody's schedule, it's been moved to go on the council agenda to March 18th, I believe.
Mr. Chairman, let you know, I do plan to bring that up at a council meeting. no offense to the folks who voted for it and all that, but it just appears that this thing has no real support. And I'm going to make sure that the council's on board, because between now and March could be a very long, arduous time in discussing of this. But so it may come before the council before then.
Okay. I think one of the difficulties is the availability of representing both the Beach Committee as well as the Recreation Commission, should it come before council before that.
Well, and that's true. And that could be an issue, and then the council will have to decide it. The problem that I'm having, though, is that there's a lot of people drawing conclusions over this that have nothing to do with the purpose, I believe, that you have brought forth on this parking systems. But at the same time, it just seems to be an open wound, and it's not doing anything good for the community, in my opinion. Now, the council may disagree with that. I have not talked to council members about it, and they may say, hey, we keep on going till March. But I will tell you, it's a festering issue.
I guess what are you talking about here? Did we
The
skip
parking
to
systems, the parking systems, there is no support on the Oceanside.
Businesses.
Maybe one, but the
Well, no,
Oceanside
let me just
businesses.
clarify. George he supports whatever it is to help the city. Like I said, he's okay with anything. He just, whatever benefits the city is what I said. He's okay with anything. So
The Oceanside business and the businesses down there, I have yet to have one come to me and say they have any support for this, and that's where it's going to impact.
Now, Dick, you've done your presentation to the city council?
No, that's what was postponed.
Well, why wouldn't we go ahead with the presentation? I mean, that makes
and you
absolutely
can. And you
no
can
sense.
in March. I'm just saying that I just want to make sure that
Because,
we have.
15 or 20 people complained. Does that mean we don't have a presentation?
If they are the stakeholders, I think we need to listen.
Well,
Yes.
let them come to the meeting and listen to the presentation
They were at several of the committee meetings.
of the parking. Well,
Parking,
the
yes.
last time that we talked about, I thought, Dick, when you talked about this, that if they were not opposed at the committee meetings. Was there a great opposition when they came to the committee meetings?
The OBA people were outspoken, yes.
That they were opposed?
Yes.
Okay. So does that mean we do not have a presentation from this committee go to city council?
Be very fine. You can have the presentation, is just to make sure that they understand that from our standpoint, we're not doing anything and there's no underlying reason. And administratively, at this point, I do not support the parking systems.
Were you here for Dick's presentation?
I was not here at the Recreation.
Okay.
I attended several of the commission meetings, the committee meetings.
Okay.
I was not there for the final vote. I missed 2 votes that I should have been at.
Well, my only point is whether it's right or wrong, we made a recommendation.
Correct.
And just
And that has
because you or 15 or 20 people don't like it, I don't think that means that we don't follow through and make our presentation to the city council. I've been reading the newspaper too, and part of the problem is people making decisions when they don't have all the facts.
And Lynn, I am not stopping you. I'm just and letting you know that I do plan to put it under my report in council meeting prior to March.
If the council decides after the presentation they have no interest, I think that we all will acknowledge that, obviously, but I think that after all the work the committee did and that we did a vote and a recommendation, that the presentation should be made at least.
And that's fine, because you guys can get on the agenda for the council anytime you want to. Okay. Yeah, that's not an issue.
Because making decisions without facts is just absolutely ridiculous.
And I think I attended all those committee meetings, probably almost as many as Dick. and I attended most of the discussion. I go to the OBA board meetings monthly, so I get input from those folks, and I will tell you the stakeholders in this issue have some real concerns, and I need, in my opinion, I'm going to voice those concerns. And you're right. If the city council, I mean, they may say, go sit on the end of the counter or something. I don't know, but I feel an obligation to make sure that everybody understands, at least administratively, where I'm coming from in the process.
I absolutely agree with
Jim,
you.
I just want to say I appreciate it because I know kind of what you deal with, and I appreciate you letting us know, and I know what all you're dealing with. And Lynn, just so you know, I mean, people come to him because he's a lot more available and out than I think any of us are, so he hears a lot of both sides, the concerns, and like he said, even anybody who's for it, I think he hears it. So I appreciate what you're doing and understand where you're coming from, trying to save everybody a lot of trouble. And
I certainly am not trying to press this through. I'm just, I've been reading all the letters to the editor and everything as well. And, there has not even been any mention that we talked about free parking for city residents. That was one of the
yes, there was. There has been. It came from a county resident who said we better watch what we do with the city residents. But the answer to the question is, and Lynn, I'm not pushing anything down. Your presentation, this Recreation Commission's presentation to the City Council, you're welcome to get on the agenda, and it could be March or whenever you want to do it. That's fine.
Well, I just think after all the work the subcommittee put into it, and just to get the facts out there is worthwhile. I'm not saying if it's right or wrong, but again, to put the facts out there and to let people know how much money this could generate and that this could be an alternative to raising taxes. And, I think some of that information needs to get out there. So people, if they are opposed to it, they're opposed to it based on the facts, not on something they heard on the street. That's all.
Lynn, you know as well as anyone that between Rob and I bringing things to the council, to the Recreation Commission, we brought everything from hot dog stands. You even have one on the agenda today, the chairs and umbrellas. So we have brought items to the Recreation Commission for recommendations. The parking thing, it was no different, except it's the same issues that we have voted down other. In my opinion, I think I've gotten some of the facts, but all that being said, we have brought things to the Recreation Commission for recommendation to the City Council, which you have done, and I have no objection to that. But in this particular case, this is just one that I just want to make clear the water as to where my position is on it.
Understood. I guess I would like to, if Dick is willing to represent the subcommittee, I would like to see this at least brought to City Council. And if they don't think it's a good idea, then it's just another thing that was put out there as a way to save some of the recreation resources that people want in this city. It's another way to generate revenue that we desperately need in the recreation department. And that's what this was all about. I don't think any of us on this committee have an agenda other than to make the recreation department the best department that it can be and what people want. So again, I just wanted to be put out there. This is another alternative for our city. If it's voted down by City Council, I'm okay with that.
But if you've met with all the City Council and the mayor and they ask you to put it off, then shouldn't we respect that? And if Jim wants to just say what his concerns and then let City Council decide from what you've already talked to them and.
I met with all city council members. The mayor was the only one requested that I delay it.
And mine is not to say don't delay it. Mine is just to make sure that we clarify. And I respect the fact that the vote took place in the committee. And I, of all the times that I missed one, I missed that vote in the committee. And then I also had to leave for a Main Street meeting, and I missed the final vote after your presentation in the Recreation Commission. But mine is I was just letting you know that I feel a responsibility to make sure that council knows where we stand on this thing process. But no, your presentation, Lynn, I don't want to ever block any of that. It's just a function of calling the city clerk's office and you get on the agenda like anyone else.
Well, I would like to see that subcommittee get on the city council so it's on the record of what the facts are, that's all.
And I think they've been provided a lot of facts. So, but anyway, that's.
I thought it was a great presentation. We all agreed on the committee that we wanted to make a recommendation. You know, again, the subcommittee spent a lot of time and put a lot of effort into it. And I just think it's worthwhile putting out there on the table and getting it on the public record.
And I think something also that has to be attention paid to is, as you say, you've met with the OBA, but as far as the actual city residents, the voting city residents, how much are they aware of exactly what we're talking about? I mean, the OBA attended, city residents didn't attend the meetings. So as far as the transparency is everything presented, I don't think all the information has gotten to the people that are totally affected by this.
That's why I'm telling you today. I mean, the discussion continues on, but again,
well, it should, because it's a very important. I mean, it's a very important issue for this city.
Yep.
You know, for several reasons. And going back again, the mayor asked me if I would consider moving it from last night, you know, until actually he has to go to January. But my schedule doesn't allow me to do anything.
And I think that was appropriate. I don't think the last meeting of the year was the real time, because you're talking about transparency, because it was moving pretty quickly down the track. But I mean, that presentation still, again, you have the right to get on the agenda at any time as a committee, a commission, or whatever. I'm not blocking that. I'm just letting you know that.
That's fine.
Because I would hate to have it come out in a newspaper and you guys say, well, he was right at our Recreation Commission. Why didn't he say something? So the transparency thing, Dave.
Well, can we get it on the February City Council, one of their meetings?
No, I'm not available till March. I mean, it's just my schedule's stacked. So I'll be glad to present it in March. I mean, it's not, I mean, the real reasoning to even move it to the last night's meeting was the vendors made part of their presentation, you know, that they would offer 60 days free use, qualified free use of their systems, you know, a couple of them to test in a couple of the parks, which ideally, business-wise, would make sense, because that if you moved it, you could, I mean, once council approved of the test, you know, then the vendors have to come in and do a survey, and then they put their equipment in. So to see what it would do during season, you know, we chose the two parks which was presented, and, you know, just to see what would happen. And once you delay it, it doesn't matter whether you delay it 2 months or 4 months, you know, as far as doing it, because you still have to go through the same steps. I mean, right now it's subject to whatever council desires. But I think this thing, as long as I've been around here, parking systems, I mean, when I went back and looked at the system, and they actually presented parking systems at one time for the beach. Pat Callahan did it like 1985, I think was the last time. And the system was kind of poisoned because people were used to the parking meters downtown. So that created a negative feeling immediately, you know, as far as the perception of what a parking system would be. And as you've seen, you know, this would be a different approach to it. So
again, I would love to see it on the agenda in March for City Council. I have a difficult time when we have people wanting lifeguard coverage at the beach. They want Leisure Square open. They want the pool open. They want the fountain open, and there's no money to do that. And this is just an option. This was an option we looked at and said, you know what? We could just try this, and we could recommend trying this instead of laying off another person or closing this or closing that. It's just another option out there.
Okay.
All right, I think we're on record, of this. I don't think we need a motion or anything to support it and what's going on. All right, so that was that subcommittee. Any other discussion on beach subcommittee?
No.
How about, we got two other ones. Fees.
Fees. Right now, just to let you know, we're right in the middle of a lot of special events, but I have the community center, Leisure Square, and Center Stage all working on. They've been given the tennis template that was put together, and they should have those back to me. I'm hoping probably by the middle of next month. And the idea would be that I will bring that to you. I'm hoping to have that for you for the meeting in February.
Did you present that last night or yesterday to council?
What was last one?
Last night.
Or last week, I guess.
Last week was Riverside Tennis and the double wide, triple wide pavilions.
Okay, and that's when they decided to split it.
Right. Exhibit A, Exhibit B.
All right.
Right. And that's something that we needed to know, too, just to see which direction to go between you guys and the group that Greg had put together.
All right, so it goes before council as split options.
Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit A is going back before council in the first meeting in January, and that's the tennis rates.
Okay, what about the
pavilions?
Yes, sir.
The pavilions right now are being tabled with the possibility of bringing back maybe a different solution. They did not approve it the way it was presented.
Yeah, but did they request you bring it back?
They did. They requested I bring it back, and I was thinking that I would bring it back with maybe an alternate solution. Maybe allowing just for one pavilion at each of the parks to be rentable. So in other words, if Lynn calls me and says I would like to reserve the pavilion, one of the pavilions, instead of having to go at 6:30 or 7 in the morning, I could designate one pavilion from each of the parks so that people would have the opportunity to rent it. Realizing that, we had looked at all of the pavilions. The council was not for that change, that drastic change. They were looking for alternatives. And my thing is to come back to you with possibly that solution, along with the other rate changes that we're going to be recommending. Bring it to you. If you guys are good with the way I put it and how I word it, I'll bring it back to council. Again, I'll have that as one separate exhibit along with the different exhibits for each of the different areas.
All right, any other fee or rate changes?
Yeah, there will be. There will be. But nothing's changed from what I presented to you guys from the test.
Okay, but when are you going to be presenting the other proposed rate and fees?
February to you guys. That's my goal. Get those to you in February.
Okay. And where I'm going on this, what follow-up is going to be required? I'm trying to sunset these committees.
Sunsetting committees, what I'm hoping for is all of the rest of it is going to go through. I'm hoping to have a couple meetings in January, have it to you in February, and that meeting will be sunsetted.
Okay.
That's my goal.
Anything, Greg?
No, that's about it. We're just trying to put this together part at a time.
Right.
All right, Judy?
I'm going to pass these out first. This is what our meeting was about. Rob, this is yours and Patty's and Greg's.
I need one more. For that.
Oh, wait,
We can
here's
share,
another.
Patty and I can share one. We can take it back.
There's another one right
Okay.
here.
We
Yeah,
can
it's
make
another
copies
one.
of that. We'll
Share
get
with
one
you.
for
It's
Greg.
another one.
We can share.
Yeah.
We're good.
Oh.
You know that.
Okay. Well, our committee met, and we're very interested in having teenage dances at the Heritage Center coming back, of course, with a donation fee and possibly a DJ donating this time with different things. My favorite idea, and I hope you're supporting this because this is going to affect you, I think, Mr. O'Connor, that we have a junior city council with members from the local high schools in Vero Beach High, Freshman Learning Center, Charter High, and St. Edwards, since they're in the Vero. The group will be at a council meeting, with us on a regular meeting, and bring up ideas, what they like, and what they can propose to the city council, and what you can lead us, what we can do and can't do. I've seen it done in other counties, and it really has been effective, too. It also will give the kids a good chance to learn what government is. We would ask them to still be under a sunshine, just like we are, about working on stuff. I think it'd be valuable. You've had a... Go ahead.
I was going to say I totally support that if the Recreation Commission takes that under their wing of putting that together. And
I'd be glad to. And I would like to get a teacher from the high school help that's talked to me about it.
Yeah, we will work with you in that process. As a matter of fact, the leadership comes through here, at least annually? And we do like a mock discussion of what City Council does and that kind of stuff.
I'll ask the teacher, possibly the two of us can come over and meet with you.
Sounds good. Not a problem.
Okay. And another suggestion
Let me ask one question.
Oh, sure.
Would sunshine apply?
Well, if we want them to learn government, we might as well let them know the whole.
If it's an appointed committee of the Recreation Commission, it's under sunshine. But if it's just a group of students that
I don't know.
Be a formal committee, wouldn't it? Yeah, if there's a committee of the Recreation Commission, it comes under sunshine.
This looks like tough. There was a group called Teens United for Fun. This looks like a lot of their ideas.
Is that going to require a city clerk's time, though, for minutes and
if it's
all
sunshine?
that?
They'll let you know that the committee that we're talking about was one that was, I believe the council approved that group, a teen group from the past. And that group was in the
There was a
early 90s.
Committee, that was
Teens United for Fun. Do you remember that?
Tammy's
Oh,
got
the
history.
tough group.
Tough. And
Yes.
that's what this looks like?
And actually, the council has passed a resolution for a committee called the Youth Advisory Commission. No appointments were ever made to that committee, but I can get a copy of the resolution to your commission so you can see what some of the guidelines were that they put in the resolution. That's kind of just been on hold for a while, and that may be something that we want to move on. But I'll get everybody a copy of it.
Yeah, but that has a broader scope.
It does.
I was going to say, Judy, is this a junior city council, that not a junior recreation commission?
Not a junior
so,
city council, so they could be in a broad perspective,
Right,
sponsored by us, but learning all phases helping.
Yeah. And we'll provide assistance to that whenever you have a meeting that you want to bring in, for example, the mayor or the city manager or the city clerk or a combination, and explain what our roles are. We have no problem with that.
Okay.
But the key is to have someone or a group that would really head that up, and the Recreation Commission sounds like that's something you all might want to take on.
Another suggestion was to become more involved with Greg Year Sun Up program, since we're getting an increase of the disabilities in this community, to give you more help. Because I think we have nothing for a disabled person in our city. The last time I remember is when Rob, Jeff, and I ran a camp for him during the summer. And that was, Rob, 15 years ago or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there's nothing with disabled involved.
Mr. Chairman, I must excuse myself. I've got a Main Street Board meeting that I need to attend.
Yeah. We'll see what we can vote on while
I
you're
was
gone.
just going to say that.
But I think that we need to start bringing things for the disabled child or adult into our city. I mean, there's
I
nothing
guess
for
I'd like
them.
to hear some input from Rob and Patty, what we have for what disabled programs we have and what we're doing right now.
All our programs are inclusive. We allow for kids to participate in our programs. The one thing I will say is when there are special needs, etc., your ratios are very important. And depending on the programs, we have partnered with other programs before who come in and put together events. We had the inclusion program. We've had the Association for Retarded Citizens, who is now, what are they called now? Where are they? They're not ARC.
It's right behind the high school. And
Are they still Association for? That we
But it's a
partnered
different
with them.
name.
They're not that. They're
No,
not
they got a new name.
youth
It's a different
services
name.
or. We have participated with different groups. The one thing I will say is that I think both Patty and I would really kind of want to take a look at these ideas that this group has given, and maybe come back with some type of feedback. I will be honest with you, this is the first time I've seen this today. So,
Is this something, Judy, you'd be willing to let Rob and Patty take a look at until
Of course.
January? And then
I'll be glad to help them because that's my field is special ed.
sure.
And then we could talk about it, and we'd have a chance to read this and go
Yeah,
through it.
I think that would be really helpful if we can do that, to be honest with you.
Do we need more targeted special need programs?
Your challenge, again, is the same that it is for everything.
Yep.
It's economics.
What do you think, Greg?
Partnerships.
What do you think, Greg?
That's what it boils down to. Things are needed, but we're just getting down to the financial end of it.
We're great with partnerships, and if folks want to come our way, we have no problem including them with
I mean,
us.
as the general public may longer request for more programs, greater participation.
Mm-hmm. Because really what it comes down to is, again, I have, to be honest with you, in the field, if you look at our recreation staff full-time, we have Gabby, Angie, Jeff. That's it. And if you really get into the field where they're teaching classes, you have Angie and Patty.
Is there
Gabby.
grant money available for special need programs?
Again, there can be. I will say that there is grant funding. You have to find it. And there's a lot of, again, they're matching. And then again, it's your time.
Yeah.
Who do you got to do it? So we're more about, what I will say, Dick and Lynn, is that I think we're more about partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
We open our door to partnerships, and we're fully supportive of them. And I will tell you that I know that during the summer, we have the Special Olympics coming in and using our pool and things like that. We're all for that stuff. We want to share.
Are
and leave it
you
open.
able at the camps to include people with special needs, like the kids camp? I know teaching swimming, I was able to include special needs kids. I mean, are you able to do that, Patty, in your program?
We have done our best to accommodate, but like Rob keeps saying, it is the partnerships, and especially as far as staffing goes and their area of expertise. Like somebody we were to partnership, we don't have the training, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
The one-on-one,
So we would
things
need
like
to
that.
partner with-
We would have to partner with someone who does have that training.
Who does
Make it
government
successful.
really identify as far as having the responsibility of providing the programs, like the school district? That seems to be the primary.
The school district
Provider.
is your main player. And the other thing is that we don't turn away those who want to participate. The key thing, though, is that when you have a parent who has someone who has a special need, you do want to educate them and let them know, look, we, like gymnastics, for instance, for a gymnastics program, we could have a ratio of anywhere from 4-to-1 to 8-to-1. And the parents have to understand that under those circumstances, our ratio's 4-to-1. We absolutely, as long as the parents are comfortable with we love having their children participate. But when it gets to a point where it may be a one-on-one or something like that, we're not able to provide the same service. We have to go and
What kind of accommodations are we required by law to do?
by law, we need to satisfy what we have been providing all along. In other words, if we're teaching a gymnastics program and it's let's just say 4 to 1, we absolutely 4 to 1. But if you're coming in and saying we're requesting a 1-on-1, well, that's beyond our normal scope. And we look at the normal scope because we consider it inclusion. We want to have the kids participate.
So reasonable accommodations.
Correct.
I know
Reasonable
that
accommodations.
if it's a expense that exceeds what the city can accommodate, that is not a reasonable accommodation. But I just wonder what you consider a reasonable accommodation then is what you're already providing.
That's right. And if there are any, and to let you know, if we're ever in a situation where we're unsure, we will always go to speak with the attorney's office or someone and get their input and let us know, okay, this is how you manage whatever the situation may be with the parents or with the whole, depending on what it is. So
obviously I'm not very familiar at all with the ADA requirements. But is there any mandate for us to provide programs?
ADA accessibility is correct. It's more about being accessible to those areas that you're having programs, etc. Are there any mandates? The mandates come back to what I was saying before, and I think Lynn hit the nail on the head when she said, reasonable accommodation. So our goal is to try and be as open as we can to the most people we can, and we don't turn folks away.
My question is though: is there any mandate requirement?
Is that something that you guys can look at and come back to us, like when you come back after you have a chance to review all that and let us know?
All her suggestions.
Yeah, we can do that.
I mean, just
sure.
You're not going to know all those answers off the top of your head.
Sure, but it really comes again. ADA accessibility has certain we have to follow, but via facilities in the parks, your programming,
bathroom accessible,
exactly. Your program, your width, all the sign, everything. Your programming. Whenever you're going to change your playgrounds, all of that stuff has to be taken into consideration, and it is, and we comply. And whenever we're in doubt and we're not sure, we take it to the attorney's office for their assistance. I mean, that's my answer for all of it.
Right.
To be honest with you.
Okay, so. I think we beat it to death.
Yes, we have.
I'd like to see it put back on the agenda then, Rob, for January.
Can we make that February?
Yeah.
Please.
I think.
Are we not doing anything in January?
We'd like to. I'd like Patty. She's going to be gone after this next week, and I'm not going to have her for a couple weeks, and I want to be able to have her.
Okay.
So I'm thinking I would like to do it February.
It's up to you and Dick.
Absolutely, I would appreciate that.
Get into delaying these meetings. What do you need to follow up on this to sunset your committee?
I think Rob answered it, and I can go back. My favorite is this junior city council myself. I really want to work on that. And I'm sure now we've got Mr. O'Connor involved.
Well, the question becomes, if you want it to come under the Recreation Commission, then you're going to have to make a motion, that we consider setting it up or something like that as part of this commission. That's, unless you want to work on it by yourself. I mean, I kind of got the impression from the city manager that he wants it to come under this commission. But to do that, we would need a motion, and then everybody has to vote on it.
Can we wait till after the holidays, like everything else?
We can do it in February. I'm just trying to say protocol where it's going to have to go.
I think if we do it in February when they have a chance to review everything,
right?
Give Judy time to get her
things together.
Yeah, to get her ideas together.
And I can talk to the teacher and have him come over here.
But I mean, all your suggestions, just in the February meeting, we need to move it to a motion if you desire to carry it forward.
I make a motion that we bring Judy's programs back in February.
Well, she'll do it. I mean, it's scheduled via Rob. So I don't think it really need a motion. It's already
And Tammy, you're going
inclusive.
to bring back what was brought up.
Okay.
And also, I think it would be helpful to know if it would be any time and expense from your office as well.
All right.
Yeah, we had our holiday recreation party Friday night, and there'll be a presentation to the city council about that. But it was very well attended, tons and tons of people, and I think in most regards it was very successful. Rob, I would like to give you the checks from the art auction, and I do have the paperwork that goes with Rita's painting. I just had it buried when we talked before. Thank you. So I think the big committee on this event will make a presentation to City Council on it. But it was very well attended. Lots of people.
Good. Very good. I'm sure there's a lot of hard work in it.
Dick, are you going to sunset that committee as well?
Which committee?
The fundraising committee.
We're not done.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
We have several more things in the queue.
Okay.
I think that's actually before council. Because it's not a recreation committee. It's not a recreation subcommittee. It was formed under council.
That's true.
That's right.
Yeah.
But there was discussion at the last council meeting as far as ideas, on its future. So I don't know if that was the conclusion of the discussion or is there going to be future discussion on it? Would you like to give us an idea, Mr. Winger? On the fundraising committee, there was a discussion on it at this council meeting. I think Pilar brought it up.
Dick Winger, I think it was left that Mr. Kramer would bring it back a disposition. That's, I believe, correct, isn't that, Tammy?
Basically sunset.
The way I understood it, that there was no committee anymore, and that Mr. Kramer would talk one-on-one with any volunteers that he chose to.
So that if Mr. Kramer would move forward, according to Tammy's interpretation, he would have to bring something forward to council.
To reconstitute it or whatever.
To reconstitute it. That was my understanding. You agree?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. I'm just trying to look for clarification. All right.
Just to let you know, that event had roughly 125 to 150 runners. It probably had about 1,500 to 2,000 attend. The revenue side was 15,250. Tammy, does that sound right? Expense side, we're still working on it, but we think the revenue for the event will probably be somewhere between $7,000 and $9,000 from that event. Just to give you some figures.
Very good.
Can I just ask again, what was your goal for keeping the fountain open on
Their
Sundays?
goal for Sundays was 10.
Okay.
Well, you're right out of the box, so the question is, do you go forward with it? Moving on. Recreation Director's Matters.
Just to let you know, I gave you guys a quick memo on the beach umbrella and chair rental concessions, and I know that this was a request for proposal for some ideas back to us regarding the possibility of anybody doing that. And the requests we got back were from two companies, and those were the two companies that came before you before. And they're both of their revenue ideas were 10% profit of sales. In one case, 5,000, and in the other case, it was the shared use of some equipment, such as an ATV. And I also gave my opinion on it. And one thing that Jim had mentioned to you guys that, as he had said before, we have taken a number of things and brought them to you, from hot dogs to the lifeguard stands advertising, to the double, triple wides, to some of the subcommittee stuff, of course, and then this RFP idea as well. And up to this point, pretty much the only thing we know that has been okay just temporarily is the hot dog stuff. So I think that was kind of just to kind of let you know, too, what's been going on out there. So my question to you guys, again, is after seeing that memo, and knowing that you're going to have insurances and you have to monitor them, and there are also always tax issues with these groups, what were your thoughts with this memo when you saw it?
What are your thoughts?
Well, my response back was lukewarm at best. I think the amount of time to watch them and everything else, the benefits are you get a little revenue for the recreation department, and with the person that I would favor, you get a shared use probably of some equipment. But what's is that enough bang for the buck? And when you're putting out, you guys have seen pictures and things like that. When you're putting out the umbrellas and the chairs, how do you feel about that?
Well, I feel like we've been trying really hard to figure out ways for the recreation department to continue its services. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that has been our goal for the last couple of years. We've really been struggling like that it's been kind of nickel and diming things, as evidenced by what happened last Friday night. Now, I almost feel like we need some direction from the city council. Should we continue on this path of trying to save our services in the recreation department by continuing to discuss these issues? Or are these, I feel like I need some guidance from the city council on what's going to happen to the recreation department. In terms of, are we going to keep Vero? Does that mean we're going to keep the recreation department? We're going to keep all the services we provide? And then I think city council needs to tell us where that money is going to come from. And if those are issues that we need to be discussing in the Recreation Commission. That's my feeling. Dick?
So one time I can tell the mayor.
I can only speak as one. First of all, we balanced this year's budget without cutting the recreation department by and large. Secondly, after the sale of the electric, which I believe will happen, I see that the city will be able to continue to fund the recreation. So I don't see any push to necessarily nickel and dime anything. Raising revenue and bringing the percentage of revenue as a percentage of the budget upward from where it has been is certainly desirable and commendable. That's what you've been trying to do. The fourth thing I would say is you always have a question of philosophy. You have a question of what is good for the city and good for the residents. And that has to be separated from pure economics. You have to say, I'll use one that we judged already. I mean, I can only speak for myself except where judgment has been made. But on the signs and lifeguard stand, the judgment was made that the revenue was the revenue, but you had to separate that from the philosophy of whether you wanted signs on lifeguard stands. And the judgment was that we did not. So I think you always have to, you can't say, well, it creates a lot of money, therefore it's justified. Those two things don't follow. There are a syllogism, really. And so I think it's commendable to raise revenue, but it has to philosophically pass the screen of 5 votes at City Council. And using the signs, it did not do that. So I go back to where I started. It's commendable to raise revenue, but the city, this is a healthy city. We have a cash working capital balance of $8 million, and we're not in any risk of not being able to fund the recreation department after the sale of the electric, in my best opinion. So what else can I tell you?
You know,
Those are cautious words.
I love to hear that, first of all. But we have had cuts in the recreation department. We have not, I mean, there have been cuts in this last year. There's been personnel cuts, there's been hours cuts. There have been significant cuts in the recreation department in the last year. And I think some of those things are affecting our residents. For instance, you know, one of the things...
Excuse me, my wife. She's the only one that can get through the screen. Go ahead.
One of the things that's near and dear to my heart is, you know, Leisure Square and all the cuts that have happened over there. So to say we haven't had any cuts, you know, I would say, yes, we have had cuts.
Well, I don't believe we had material cuts that I can remember in this last year's budget. I mean, we reversed a great many of them.
Rob?
Yeah, bottom line is we had about $180,000 in cuts this year.
Okay.
And that's been, some people have lost jobs and pool hours have been cut and there's been all sorts of cuts. So, you know, if we've got money to put back into the recreation department and restore some of those hours in those facilities, I say, you know, let's explore those things.
Well, we don't have money in the budget this year, and the budget is the budget. So I would resist changing personally. The budget is the budget. It was decided, it was promulgated. And I still go back to my original point, which is it has to be a philosophical good idea. It has to be something that's acceptable to the public. The mere fact that it raises money using the signs of the lifeguard stand is not justified in and of itself. And the same would be true of any project. It has to meet a double screen. It has to raise revenue, but more importantly, it has to be acceptable to the people of Vero Beach.
Well, I agree, and I guess I would ask you to go back and review the $180,000 cuts that have been made and what groups have been affected by those cuts. And the next time you are putting the budget together, think about restoring some of those services that have been cut.
The budget that we have is the budget we have, but it's your second point is germane to the degree that the city manager, I'm sorry he's not here, and Rob you bring forward things that you would like to see in the successive budget, which we will start working on in July, That's certainly germane.
No, actually, we start budget proposals in March.
But it doesn't get to city council
No,
until
I understand that, but
July.
as far as promulgating it is where you would make your recommendations to reinstate.
You know, it's an old cliche, and the cliche says the process of government is a bit messy. It's like a messy cookie cutter, if you like. And we do the best we can, and you certainly are doing the best you can and are to be commended for that. So we are where we are.
I think part of what, if I'm reading what you're saying, then, is how much. See, what's falling back to us on this commission and the breakout of the commissions into subcommittees, et cetera, is the hard push to raise revenue, you know, beyond what city comes out of general fund or, you know, whichever fund, general revenue or what's the other fund that we're really under? Pardon?
That's it.
We're under general fund now?
Well, no. Yes, we are under general fund.
Okay.
We are considered an enterprise fund.
Yeah, we're an enterprise, not general. So and that's been debated back and forth a couple of years. But I think the general question is, this commission, what is the purpose of this commission? Is it to raise funds, or is it to be advisory to both the Recreation Department and then in turn to the City Council?
Yes, that's true. And, you know, I'm a little confused why the City Council doesn't think we've cut recreation services in the last year. That's a little disturbing to me that information hasn't been shared with City Council, that you guys had to make significant cuts this last year. I just don't even know what to say about that.
Well, part of that disclosure is, I'm sure, was made as you went through the budgeting process, especially with.
I was going to say, don't they have to approve?
Absolutely goes through a budget.
So,
absolutely.
But I mean, it goes
what
through.
I will say is, some of the things that were out there that were restored, that were initially out there, were Riverside Tennis and with the lifeguards. And I think that's really what. I think that's what Dick was really alluding to. I don't know if he was really alluding to the amount of monies per se, as much as having those services.
Well, I know there was one position you eliminated.
We did.
Maintenance-wise, which has really stretched, I think, the capability of your department to support different venues.
Right.
So that is something I'm sure we'll pick up in the next budget process to try and, to have that included going forward. And, we've had the ability now with the cuts, I think, to more realize and see the significance of the impact of these cuts. So, it falls back to when we go through the staff meetings, the staff review and the recommendations, from Rob and everybody, what we've observed, just, we are an advisory council. So, and as such, we can put our program together and move it along. And it goes where it goes. So, all right, I'm trying to get this thing done tonight. Any other questions on that? Christmas drama.
Well, what I was going to ask you is just simply, with the beach umbrella and chair rental concessions, are you guys, as a group, supportive of having this go forward to council, or you're thinking that maybe
I think this was Jim's push on this. I mean, if we go back to look at whose initial push was on this, it was Jim's. He wanted to have this. So I feel like he's kind of a key spokesperson in this.
Okay.
You want to table it to the next meeting?
I would like to table it till the next meeting and ask him if he could be present, because I think since he asked me to push this through, then I think he needs to be here to talk about how he feels about it.
All right. All in favor of tabling it?
Aye.
No.
No.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me back up a second because I think Angie has a question.
Well, I don't. If we put it off, won't they miss the season, and how won't it take a while to get it?
Well, if it's and again, what I will say is this will still need to go before council for their approval, and they may not approve of it.
Right.
So
the
idea is,
I like the idea of the beach umbrellas. I have no problem. I think it's a nice service to offer the tourist, and frankly myself, it saves me from having to carry a chair to the beach. So, but I like the idea. Is there any way to go ahead and let city council vote on it again if
that's what you as a group decide?
Did you guys come up with a vendor?
We have two.
They have two.
You have two vendors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You have two responses to the RFP.
Correct. It was an RFP, so it was put out to a number of different groups, but only two responded.
Has this commission even made a final recommendation on this?
You voted no on it.
You voted no.
If you remember the group that presented.
It was 3-2 vote.
Because of
a lot of it was, I think that was just kind of so. It was one of those things I think that you'd brought up before, Lynn, that you felt.
Part of it was that cardboard presentation.
Correct, and the other part was that I think it was just you maybe didn't have enough time and information to just grasp it all.
So we need to have a motion if we want to make our recommendation to City Council.
That's right.
Again.
If you so desire to do that, or if you so desire to table or whatever, that's fine as well.
Right now, we have a motion on the floor to table.
For next meeting.
All right. Any other discussion on it? Then let's redo the vote since we broke up the question.
Well, you know what happens every time we have a meeting? Everything gets talked about forever, and we get down to stuff that needs to happen, and we end up tabling, and nothing ever moves on. What do we need to do to move this item on?
Well, I think, in my opinion, Rob has said he's not in favor of this, or he's lukewarm on this. And it involves people that report to him. I guess if we want this to move on, we can make another motion to.
You've got a question of the city manager.
I had a question whether the city manager was in support of this, and it seems like Rob is lukewarm on this. So,
who that reports to you is involved in this? I'm confused.
The people who would be running the business would be the ones that we would be monitoring.
Yeah, but they don't work for him. It's a concessionaire.
No, I think people in the city, though, would be involved with the lifeguards on the beach would be involved with this, and I think the cleanup might be involved.
That was not the impression I got at all when I listened to at least that one presentation.
What you guys can do as a group is we can move it forward, and if Jim would obviously say whether he is for or against to the council as well.
I like the ATVs.
As part of that, it's fine to go forward if you guys say so desire that.
But the oversight of it does come back under you.
Are you? So you're not against it. You're not for it. You're just okay.
I'm all right with it. I just will tell you that I know there's concerns with taxes and with his presentation, and you still got to worry about their insurances, and then you will have things that do impact. The lifeguards are going to be impacted if there's sight lines. You're also talking about shared equipment. So what do you have to do for that? That's your better presentation. So what do you have to do for that? What are the liabilities? What can you do? What can't you do?
Wasn't there line items in the RFP that said these are the things you have to satisfy to make us feel good about all those things?
Yeah, the things that are in there are mostly about making sure that they do comply, but you still have to check and make sure that they do comply.
Would
The
that fall
shared
under
use, like the shared use, which is really kind of a neat idea, like with an ATV, then who's the one that actually does the service and the maintenance? What happens if what happens if there's issues with that piece of equipment? Things like that. It's that's why I'm kind of lukewarm with it. It's more about, to me, it's more about philosophically. I think if you move it forward to the next group, I think they're gonna have their response.
If we moved it forward with our recommendation being with no shared use of any equipment,
Again, the shared use of the equipment may be really beneficial. Do you see? That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm kind of lukewarm on it. I'm not.
I personally don't like shared use with any outside vendor because I think it puts the city at risk.
Sounds like this needs deeper vetting.
We can bring it. Why don't we just go with your tabling it and bring it back to you right after Jim and I talk about it some more?
Well, could we start the meeting earlier so we could actually get through everything on the agenda?
Well, some of us are working.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I have a
that's-
meeting, I'm just
We can table it till February.
All right, you want to make your motion again? But I
And then
don't
we'll
know
come
where
back.
to table it.
What?
Okay, that's on the floor.
Do
Actually,
we have a motion from anyone else on this commission?
To table it is fine. That's fine.
Yes, I'm for tabling it.
all right. So we got the motion from Lynn.
Well, let me
A
ask one more
second from
question, though.
Greg.
Have the responses to the RFP, who's seen that?
The ones that have seen it are the Jim and purchasing.
Aren't the answers to the questions we might be interested in that RFP or in the response to the RFP?
You're still going to have. Again, the answers to the question is when they put in the RFP, they put out what they would provide. When they said shared use, now that means we still have to go through the attorneys. They haven't seen this. The attorneys haven't seen this because right now the RFP is not even.
When they said shared use, is that something they own that they're going to let us use?
That's correct.
So it's not defined.
So it's
No,
not something
it's
we
not
own that we have to let
clearly.
them use. It's something they own that they're going to
Correct.
let us use.
Correct.
Yeah, but shared is not defined. I think is
Correct.
where he's going.
There you go.
Okay, we got a motion to table. Any other? Okay, let's go by vote.
Oh,
Well, what's going to be different next time, though? Are we going to see the responses to the RFP? Or what are we going to talk about next time?
The next time, what we'll do is I will make sure they take this through the attorney's office, so you'll know what a shared use is. Because that, in my recommendation, if we do go with this, if we do go forward with this, I'm going to go with the one that has the shared use more than one that's 5,000, 10% or 5,000, because they're both the same on the amount. So 10%.
So you're suggesting better clarification of the
Correct.
response.
Correct.
Of
So
which,
I'm going to get with the attorney's office, get that to you guys. I'm going to sit down with Jim and see what he has to say to what
And then
his
you'll bring
thoughts
us back
are.
your recommendation.
And I have a feeling he'll be able to talk to individual council members and maybe get a feel how they feel about it as well.
okay.
And then come back to you guys and say,
Okay.
this is what we
All right,
I
let's
would like-
go with a roll call.
I would like to have his opinion too on this.
That's
Okay,
what I'm
we got a motion to table. We're on the vote. Go ahead.
Mrs. Sheepers? Do you tell me? Mrs. Janino?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Holton?
Yes.
Ms. Redding?
Yes.
Mr. Yam?
Yes,
Motion passes.
you got 6 votes on a 5-member voting commission.
I'll let Patty talk about the drama real quick.
You didn't hear me, Tammy.
We got one too many votes.
Yeah, that's okay.
Whoever's,
covered.
they all voted for it.
Right. It was unanimous.
Say
It's
unanimous.
It was
Yeah.
unanimous.
Patty.
Okay. Christmas Dreams, our holiday drama. This Sunday, Vero Beach High School Performing Arts Center. 2 shows, one at 2 o'clock, one at 6 o'clock. You've got a little over 200 kids involved. It's going to be a great production, and I hope you guys can all make a show.
Did you bring tickets?
I didn't, but I can. Yeah. Okay. I will mail them to you.
Oh, you can pay at the door. All right, pavilion at Leisure Square.
Yeah, the other thing was I just want to let you know that one of the things that council had asked of us during budget was that they saw that a number of our facilities looked pretty tired and probably could use some sprucing up, and that we would come back with a report on all those facilities. But I also have a group, and to let you know, I also have a group of people, specifically builders, who would be more than happy to help us out by building a pavilion at Leisure Square. And you may have read about this, but I wanted to at least show you what the pavilion would look like if the monies are able to be raised for it. And I just want to let you guys take a look at it real quick and see what they were possibly proposing. And this would be paid for by private sector and not by public sector. And you can just take a look at it, pass it down.
Well, that's going by. Anything else?
Nope.
All right, Chairman's Matters, a short meeting to a long meeting, and I think we covered substantially a lot of material. So I wish everybody happy holidays and moving it to Members' Matters.
I just have a question on this pavilion. Is this something that's already been approved?
Right now,
Or is this going to come for a recommendation? Because I have some concerns about building a pavilion around a pool that's never open.
I would say that I would probably ask for you to put that right now down on paper for me. Send me a quick note.
I mean, we can't
Do
rent
that.
out a pavilion on the weekends. Pool's not open, right?
Well, the idea with the pavilion was going to be twofold. One would be possibly for rental, but also for shade. And, as you take a look at the pavilion, I don't know if
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
It's lovely, but then I just go back to the fact we've closed all the pool hours on the weekend. So we're building a pavilion to rent out in the pool. So people are going to rent that on the weekend. They won't be able to use the pool unless they rent the pool.
I think you got bigger issues.
Yeah, don't they? Isn't a lot of that being donated by the? I mean, a lot
all
of
being
it
donated.
on
It's
donated.
100%.
So it's not like there's.
No, I mean, if somebody rents that pavilion, they're going to have to provide a lifeguard just because they have access to the pool.
Right.
But you certainly need shade, especially in the summer.
Yeah.
I mean, so nobody.
So is this something you can give us a orientation to at the next meeting with, maintenance, what it's going to mean to your department, who's going to maintain it, all that stuff?
Sure. I can do that. I think it'll slow down the process of the excitement, but sure. From everything I got from the group that was willing to sponsor, is the maintenance of it would not be a whole lot of cost for the structure that they're looking to erect. And the idea would be they would want to generate enough to pretty much offset that facility, but also be able to have monies raised from it to help maybe with recreation programs over at Leisure Square. If you look at the naming rights, if you look at that one sheet where it says naming rights, it's $25,000. At $25,000, the actual cost of the pavilion is $15,000. The extra $10,000 could be utilized for either or maintenance or bringing back some recreation programs, i.e., like we're doing for the fountain, where we're looking at possibly Sundays we could pick a date for that. So the idea and the premise behind this is not only for awareness, but also to provide a piece of equipment that would enhance that facility.
Well, I would love that if we had this was built and extra money to open the pool again on Sundays and Saturday afternoons, and because that's a problem right now.
And that is the goal, and I'll let you know that is the goal.
And that's a lot more than $10,000 a year.
Oh, yeah, of course, depending on
I mean,
which,
for
what
lifeguards
you do.
and heating
Absolutely.
and all of that. I think my feeling is, let's put everything out on the table here. If this is to raise money with rentals, does everyone know that they'd have to pay to rent a lifeguard and all of that, if they wanted the pool as well on the weekends.
Is it just to raise? Isn't it just to enhance the property to maybe make more people want to be a member of Leisure Square to
Yes.
enhance
That's a
the
good
whole
point.
overall
Everything.
thing? So it's
Right.
not just the income of renting out the pavilion, but to enhance everything about Leisure Square.
Does an improvement like this have to go before the council?
I'm not sure.
Because when they put the gazebos over and the big gazebo,
It did go before.
correct. So you do have precedence.
That would be a problem for me to take it to them.
I think it's an amazing
Absolutely.
gift. They want to do that.
Yeah, but I think it should
Yeah,
just
you can do that.
stay in concurrence with what your precedence.
Absolutely,
Yes.
that would be fine.
And then we
You guys
come.
are for that?
It comes back here in terms of naming rights.
Again,
If we're talking, we just talked about the dog area.
right.
That's a different thing. What he's talking about is a donation to
Right.
be able to put someone's name on the
Correct.
pavilion.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we wouldn't necessarily get involved in picking that name.
No, I wouldn't want to. I couldn't do that.
No.
I mean, especially if they're going to donate 25,000, we can put it towards recreation stuff. The other name. But what I would like to do is, if because I just wanted to show you that and let you know that you got a group that's really excited about doing it. I think you got an opportunity possibly to raise money beyond just paying for the pavilion. And I think you have the opportunity to provide more monies out there in the future, i.e. whether there's small rentals at that facility or whether it brings in more membership or whether it gives people shade, people like that. And I also think that through the recognition and people coming out to the pool itself for the events and everything else, that might bring in more people's money as well.
Right.
And, I have no problem absolutely taking it to the city council.
All right. As I said, I express my chairman's matters, members' matters. Let's start. Who's down there? Judy.
None.
Okay. Angie.
None.
Sue.
Is he going to take that before the city council now? Does he have to come back to us before he can?
That's up to council.
Yes, you're going to go ahead and put it on the city council agenda.
I'll put it on there,
Good.
not for I probably won't put it on for the January 7th. I'll probably put it on for the next one.
21st.
Yep.
Lynn.
No.
All right. We are adjourned.